It's great to be here in my house in quarantine.
I know. Every day the same. It's Groundhog Day.
It's not looking good for the future.
So you're in Oxford?
I am. I'm in Oxford, and I've been in Oxford for all of quarantine, but just living in Oxford since the very end of December. Before that, I was living in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina. Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah. No, so I'm actually from California, and then I lived in Hawaii for about 5 years before moving to South Carolina. Was in South Carolina for about 3 years, and then moved here. So I keep moving away from like really good weather to like worse weather.
But not so bad so far.
No,
in UK.
I mean right now it's gorgeous, but January and February were a little bit bleak.
Yeah, that shift from California over. I lived in Vancouver for a period of time, so I was used to like that Seattle, Vancouver 7 months of rain. So coming over here, it wasn't as big of a shift.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time in the San Juan Islands up in Washington, and the summers are beautiful.
Yeah.
And people who come to visit during the summer, they're like, oh, wow, this is like so nice. Like you must just love living here. I'm like, yeah, all right. Wait till November, December, January, February, March. Like it's beautiful for 2 months out of the year, and the rest is terrible.
And then you get that seasonal depression going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great, though, for avoiding skin cancer.
There you go. That's a positive. Yeah, for all the Australians out there.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm in trouble after
Hawaii.
Moving to Hawaii. Yeah. Moving to Hawaii in your 20s, you're not really smart about skincare. Like, oh my God, I'm so tan.
Were you surfing and swimming or doing Ironmans? I know the Ironman thing is in...
the Kona Ironman.
Yeah.
No, so I went to the University of Hawaii. I actually did my yoga teacher training out in Hawaii as well. So I was super into yoga when I was out there.
Yeah.
I tried very, very hard to get into surfing.
It's hard though, right?
I just wasn't good at it.
Yeah.
And I went out with gusto probably the first 4 or 5 months I was living there. I'd be going down to the beach, take my board out and paddle out there and, wait your turn, wait for the right wave and try and stand up and just get pummeled underwater and push back to shore, swallow a bunch of water. And then you're like, cool, I'll paddle out again, and then sort of rinse and repeat over and over again until you're really exhausted.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't the sport for me. I got really into shelling when I was out there, though. Just sort of swimming down and looking for seashells.
Yeah,
not like just walking the beach.
Yeah.
And so I left Hawaii, and I had like Ziploc bags full of seashells that are completely useless, but it's kind of like the chase for them that's the most exciting part.
So you could hold your breath for a really long time then? I
can hold it long enough to grab a couple seashells at the bottom and then come back up like gasping for air.
Yeah.
I generally prefer sports where air is readily available, though. Hence why I did not get into triathlons, because they involve swimming. And
I was looking at, just what it takes to do triathlon or an Ironman, and oh my God, running's a bit simpler. So anybody who's listening or watching right now, I mean, my channel, we focus on climbing. I'm talking to Cavey here today, and you are a long distance runner and specializing in marathons. That's the rumor. It's true that your goal going forward right now is to try and make the US Olympic team, the trials for that?
So, I would like to run in OTQ, which is an Olympic trial qualifying time. And for running and for the marathon, it's a little bit different than a lot of other sports. For me to qualify to run the Olympic trials marathon, I would have to run a sub 2:45 marathon. And that would qualify me to, that's what the current standard is. The standard might change because they had a record number of women qualify for the last Olympic trial marathon, which was in March in Atlanta. But if they keep that standard, I'll need to run a sub 2:45 marathon, which is about a 6:17 pace for 26.2 miles.
6:17 mile pace. I know this is going to be mostly like Americans and people from the UK, so that makes sense to them. I work in kilometers, so what is that? Like, it's got to be less than 4, actually.
I think it is less than 4.
3 minutes something. Insanely fast. You got to do that.
It's very fast. So I would have to qualify, and I don't think the qualifying window has opened up yet. I think it opens up in the fall.
Yeah.
But then if I run that time, I would be invited to participate in the Olympic Trials Marathon, which would be in 2024. And at that marathon, the top 3 women and the top 3 men claim the 3 available American spots for the U.S. Olympic team
for
the
Paris.
Paris. So I don't think I'm gonna be the top 3, the person that gets the Olympics. Yeah. But my goal is to be in that sort of cream of the crop, the people who are invited to run in the Olympic team trials.
I imagine the field is amongst some of the most competitive in the world.
It's pretty neat. I would be excited to be up there with them.
How did this start? Like, have you been running your whole life?
No. So I played a lot of sports growing up. A lot of team sports. I played soccer and softball and basketball and roller hockey. And honestly, I was pretty bad at them. I don't know what it is about the team sports that was such a challenge for me growing up. I think I kind of get lost in my own little world, and I'm not really good at passing the ball, and I'm not really good at dribbling or shooting either. So, but running is a factor in almost all of sports, in basketball and softball and soccer. And so I was involved in running like loosely growing up in my middle school and high school years, but mostly just coach making you run drills or something like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until my late teens and early 20s that I started picking up running for exercise, mostly because I was poor and couldn't afford a gym membership. Mm-hmm. And running, you can just throw on a pair of shoes and go. And I kind of regret that because I think I probably could have got a scholarship to college if I had played my cards right. Mm-hmm. But when I was in my early 20s living in Hawaii, I had always had this sort of bucket list idea of running a marathon, and decided that it was the right time. The Honolulu Marathon is one of the biggest U.S. marathons. So I signed up. I think I was 21, and I thought it was going to be a one and done type situation. Yeah. Especially because I had never raced before. I never ran a 5K or a 10K or even a half marathon before I signed up for my first full.
You went straight into full marathon from
I did.
Never doing a 5K, 10K.
So,
but you definitely obviously trained those distances going into it.
I think the marathon is really alluring to a lot of people because it seems like it's sort of like, I don't know, for the triathlon, it's at the top there. If you get there, you feel like you've conquered all the other shorter distances.
Yeah. And there's the mythology behind it too. I heard it originated somebody running to Rome, talking about the wars over, or wherever it was, Athens,
to the city of Marathon to deliver a message about
that's it.
winning. Yeah. And then he
keels over and dies.
Yep.
There you go. And then people are like, sign me up. I want to do that. I want to do the race the guy died, but then not die at the end.
Yeah. So yeah, I signed up and I ran my first one. I did not die. I actually did pretty decently. And I was like, cool. Checked off.
Yeah.
About 6 months later, I decided, well, maybe I'll do one more. Mm-hmm. I'll do one more. I'll see what happens. And I did that one. I missed Boston qualifying by 2 minutes. And for my age group, I needed to run sub 3:35 to qualify for Boston.
Yeah. That's one of the most competitive races, isn't it?
It is. It's one of the most competitive ones you can qualify for. I think it's actually really interesting because New York is more difficult to qualify for than Boston.
Okay.
But Boston has a lot more prestige because it's the oldest marathon.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is actually one of the first years that they've had to postpone it. So it's really interesting.
So you were really close. 2 minutes. That's
Yeah,
very
so I
close.
was really close at my second marathon. And I was like, well, I mean, now I got to qualify for Boston. So then I ran a third one and I qualified for Boston. And then it sort of spiraled out of control from there because then I had to run Boston. And then I ran Boston and it sort of became this thing of, oh, I'll just run one more. I'll just run one more. And now I've run 18 of them.
Wow. Wow. I saw a clip on, I think it was your Instagram. It was one in China. You did a Great Wall of China and you came first place. And this looked like the most insane, grueling thing anybody could put themselves through, because it's not just a flat, you're running the Great Wall of China, which sounds like amazing in itself. But then you have over 5,000 stairs, I think they said. Some insane.
Yeah, and there's a lot of incline.
And did they have proper things along the way as well for like water and hydration?
There were a couple like water and hydration parts. So about 13 miles of it is on the wall.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's less than that. I was not in a really good headspace for a lot of that race. I like to think of myself as a pretty well-educated person, but for some reason going into this race, I just didn't think about the fact that the Great Wall would have stairs. I was picturing it as like rolling hills. I was like, it's cool. I can handle that. But they have stairs, and they're not just normal stairs like you have in your house. They are really big stairs, really uneven. It was a brutal race. I was not expecting it to be that hard. It's probably one of the hardest races I've ever run, but it was super exciting. It was my first like marathon win that I had. I got a big trophy. I got to get interviewed, which I love talking about myself. So it was perfect.
You came to the right place.
Yeah. No, it was really fun. And my husband ran it as well. It was kind of funny because.
Did he die? He didn't die. Is he still around?
So,
I know he's in class right now.
He is in class right now. So people always joke. We're not competitive with each other at all. I think he's run 13 or 14 marathons now.
Wow.
But I am a little bit faster than him. So I finished before him and I took a shower. They did the award ceremony. They interviewed me. And then he finished. I was like,
so just a little bit. It's just a little bit faster.
So I was waiting for him at the finish line to tell him that I won. I was like so excited. So he finishes what feels like finally. It was probably only an hour or so later. And I was like, I won. He's like, what did you win? I was like, the marathon. And he's like, I don't understand what did you win? And I was like, the race. Like he couldn't understand because it was such a funny, like absurd concept that I would win a race.
Are you a competitive person?
I think you have to be competitive to a certain degree to participate in sports. I'm not necessarily competitive with other people most of the time. A lot of marathoning for me is about trying to beat my previous best time.
Yeah.
The 100 women who are in front of me don't really matter as much as the minutes I'm sort of chiseling away from my own time. Yeah. Except in that race, I remember it was like mile 25 and I saw this woman behind me and I was like, gosh darn it. Cannot let this woman catch me now. But no, most of the time I am more competitive against myself and I'm trying to kind of get down to I'm trying to figure out what my limits are really. Like, trying to get closer and closer to the absolute most I can put out.
I see that in running and the same similarities with climbing, which is another thing why I enjoyed it. I grew up similar, like playing tons of team sports in Canada, playing competitive hockey and like you do and all these things, eventually finding climbing.
As one does in Canada,
As one
hockey.
does. We had hockey rinks on the side of the road. You just go skate. But finding climbing later on, again, it's almost personal journey. You can go that route. Like a lot of the guys I talk to who are competitive athletes on the national team and compete internationally, but most of us out there are doing it for ourselves, not to be an Olympic champion at some point. So it's a constant step towards improving yourself and pushing yourself a little bit further, inch by inch, and getting a higher grade, a better result, getting a bit stronger. And I've noticed it. I mean, I'm in my 30s now, but I noticed it especially as people approach 30, at least the people that I know. I had this thought myself that it's almost now or never. I'm not out there to win any medals or anything like that, but I know that there's some things that I want to accomplish in the time that I have before I know eventually the body's going to start giving up. There's going to be other priorities in life. So there's this like sense of urgency to just let's do this now. I'm not 18 anymore, but there's still a lot of things I want to accomplish and do. Do you sense any like similarities there? In you feel you were saying a second ago that it's like you want to push yourself.
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot of similarities between climbing and the running community. I did climb a really good amount in my late teens and early 20s.
Nice.
Got really into it for a while, kind of before I found running. And I think the communities are really, really similar, and the people who like the sport are really similar because they're people who don't mind working alone and they don't want to brag, but they want to accomplish something for themselves. And there's a good support in both communities. They're sort of funny solo sports with a community element to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the thing you were saying too, like you're amongst all these other people and competitors, but you're still really focused on what you can do for your own time. And it's like a personal bests are almost the ultimate goal there. And climbing is the same thing, at least how I see it. When I talk to competitive climbers.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if someone flashed that V8 on the first try and it took you 6 weeks of projecting it.
Yeah.
If you get it, you got it, and you're both happy and supportive of one another.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think running's really similar.
So I've recently kind of come back to running right now.
Yes, I've seen you're on a little adventure there.
I'm on this. So I'm also a person who enjoys a good challenge. And anyway, I obviously have a YouTube channel, so I like to put those out sometimes. And I'm doing this 30-day challenge, doing 5K a day. But I haven't run in 4 years, and it feels I'm in such pain right now. But
so did you start at the beginning of the month?
Yeah, on like May 2nd. May 2nd I started.
Okay, so you're about 3 weeks in right now.
Yeah, I think today's I can't remember, day 19 or 20. I have to check each time before just to make sure I got the right day, because it all starts to blur in together. But pretty much, yeah, I think I did 5 or 6 runs as my prep, like a couple 2Ks, a 3K, a 5K, and 10K, and then I was like, okay, I'll take 2 weeks off and let's start this thing. Let's get this thing going. Because I don't know why I had in my head, I thought, well, you know what, I knew it was going to be challenging. I didn't exactly know how challenging it was going to be. If I go back in time 4 years, I ran a half marathon. That was my big thing a long time ago. And that thing nearly killed me. And I think having a bad memory for when you're is a good thing when you're doing challenges like this, because you forget how hard it was. So it makes it easier to try something like this again. But
the brain wants to forget trauma.
Yeah.
That's why I keep signing up for marathons.
That's exactly
it. Wasn't that hard? I'm looking back no, that was pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then it's like mile 16, oh my God, shoot me.
Why am I remember finishing the half and thinking, why would anybody run a full marathon? This is enough. I don't need to do any more than this. Anyway, I'm doing this running challenge thing right now.
What are you finding the most hard about it, the most difficult?
It's actually I think it's the stabilizers, like the small muscles and things, tendons that I have not been using.
Mm.
One of the things that I think a lot of climbers think about is like, I don't need my legs. They almost want their legs to atrophy in a way, and they're afraid to get them big at all
Runners
because
are the same with the upper
with the
body.
upper body. Yeah.
They're both sports in which being lighter is beneficial, and you want to be lighter in the areas that you don't need to utilize as much.
Exactly. But I'm in quarantine. I need to get outside, and I need to just like exert some energy somehow. Running, there's only so much you can do inside. But I look at long distance runners, and everybody seems pretty thin and light, and I mean, you don't have sprinter legs. So I thought, well, how much muscle could I actually build in my legs? But anyway, for the struggle right now, I've really started to enjoy running again, which is amazing.
Mm.
But the struggle, I've got like my right foot, there's like tendon issues going on down there. So my lungs feel great. My legs have slowly been getting more and more stiff and tired as the month goes on. But
I believe it.
But the tendons in my right foot. So some days I've had to walk because I just physically am not able to run, but I still want to put in my 5K. So that's the biggest issue right now. But I'm actually like finding that love again for running, which I found years ago. And I get excited now to like go out and have a good run. And when you push that pace a bit again, it's really, I get, maybe it's that runner's high or whatever dopamine hit or whatever is happening in there. But I find it really enjoyable to like get a new PB and get out there and hit the road. So I'm hoping
It's so funny how us runners are like motivated by an arbitrary number. We're like, oh yeah, got that time. And no, everyone else like, that seems like a big number. Shh, don't ruin it for me.
I know some people hate running, and you must. I mean, I imagine you're an ambassador for it, and you're an advocate for running. You must come across a ton of people who say like, "I just hate it. I don't want to do it." What do you say to people to help them get into it?
I don't know that you can convince someone to love something that they don't love.
Yeah,
but I do think that with running, the same way with a lot of things in life, it takes time to build a relationship with it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go on one run and love it the same way that you're not going to go, you might go rock climbing one time and love it. That's kind of how it worked for me.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I think people don't enjoy things if they're not good at them. Mm-hmm. And they start to enjoy them more when they see progress or they see themselves getting better. So a lot of times when people are asking me how to get started, the two biggest things that I will tell them are to set a goal. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't need to be a race necessarily, although I think races are really great goals to keep people on track. But just setting a goal of like running your fastest mile, or setting a goal of being able to complete this whole loop around your neighborhood without stopping.
Yeah.
Or setting a goal to, I don't know, whatever you want to do. If you have that goal and you see yourself making progress towards it and eventually achieving it, it's going to get you excited about it because you see yourself getting better and improving, and it sort of opens up the opportunity to think, oh, I wonder what else I'm capable of. Mm-hmm. So setting a goal, I think, is really, really important for people who don't like running. Maybe set a goal to run 5K a day. I don't know.
Or a marathon, your first race.
Or a marathon.
Do you have training partners? Do you think running with others? Is a good thing to do?
Absolutely. So that was the other thing I was going to say, is having a community is really, really important. There's a lot of studies out there that suggest sharing an emotional workload makes things feel physically easier for us. And I think a lot of people have experienced that, going hiking with friends or going to the gym with a friend. It makes it feel a little bit easier. It makes it social. It makes it a little bit more fun. And they can also those people who you get involved with can keep you accountable for your goals. I am someone who is kind of like a dangerous friend to have, because people will tell me, oh, I want to run a half marathon. I'm like, all right, 12-week training plan. Here's how we're going to progress your mileage. I'm going to do all your long runs with you. And this is stuff I've actually done. My husband and I ran a quarantine marathon.
A quarantine marathon?
Yeah. We had signed up to run some big races this spring. We were going to run the Tokyo Marathon.
Wow.
We were going to run the Paris Marathon, and we were going to run the London Marathon.
Nice.
And obviously things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I was really excited about those trips. I've been training really hard. I've been working with a coach. I thought I might have the opportunity to pull off some fast times. But alas, COVID-19.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I decided that we had been training and working really hard, and we should just do a marathon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Why not?
Why not?
Just do it yourself.
26.2.
Who cares?
So I didn't want to get my own personal best. I wanted to help my husband, Jacob, get a PR.
Yeah.
So I paced him for 26.2 miles, and he got a almost 14-minute PR.
Wow. 14 minutes. That's a lot.
Yeah. So he ran a 3:38, and I was with him every step of the way. Only, threatened divorce like 4 or 5 times. But other than that, it was great.
Do you have to run behind him at all and you just shout at him to keep going?
Yeah, there was a couple times where there was not shouting, but some harsh encouragement, I'll say. But again, I kind of pride myself on being someone that if you tell me you have a goal,
yeah,
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you get there, short of dragging you across the finish line.
Oh, wow. So if I say I want to run the London Marathon, you're going to make sure that...
Give me your credit card. I'm signing you up.
I'll run with your husband in the back and we'll cheer you on from afar. You were saying, well, it sounds like you coach people and you have a coach. Did you notice a big improvement when you do that? Because I know a lot of people in climbing, I think climbing, like running, is one of those things where you think, well, I could probably do this on my own. You can do a lot on your own. Oh, there's like ambulance going by, or cops. You can do a lot on your own, but I got some coaching last year, which gave me some really great insight, and that information helped me progress a lot faster than just aimlessly like doing stuff on my own. Did you notice a really big difference in your game when you started working with someone?
Yeah. I identify a lot with what you're saying about thinking that it's a sport you can do on your own. It's just running. You just put one foot in front of the other. How complicated can it be? So I actually didn't get a coach until January of this year, which means I ran 17 marathons without a coach.
Wow. Yeah.
Completely self-coached. I don't really coach people. I've written a couple training plans for friends, but going into it, the coaching, I didn't know how beneficial it would be. I sort of thought it can't hurt. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not going to get slower with a coach, right?
Yeah. If you did, that's a bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bad
but
coach.
I also thought, I kind of had this idea in my head that coaching was only for like serious athletes. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think of myself as being that serious. Up until I think it was December, I ran the California International Marathon. I ran a sub 3 hour marathon, which is something like a lot of runners aspire to do.
It's a huge goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge accomplishment.
It was really exciting. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm getting there. And that kind of pushed me over the edge into being like, okay, I got this far on my own. Let's see how far I can get with someone else, especially going into a spring of pretty big races. Mm-hmm. I've noticed a much bigger improvement than I thought. There's a lot about training and running that I didn't know
Mhm.
And I've seen a huge amount of progress. I'm running paces now in training that before I was only running during races.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm running higher mileage than I've ever run before. I think 2 weeks ago I ran a 70 plus mile training week.
See,
Which
when I hear things like that, like I'm doing this challenge right now that to me seems like insane. It's like 5K a day. But you are doing like more than double that in a I don't know how many miles you're doing in a day, but 70 miles in a week is obscene. That's like I don't know what the conversion is, but I think that's probably around 100K, maybe over 100. It's got to be over 100K in a week.
100K would be like 61 miles, I think.
Yeah.
A little over 100K.
So say
Yet
110.
the running is really fascinating to me because it's so relative. For a marathoner, running a half marathon is
It's easy.
that distance is seemingly a lot more achievable and manageable. And for a half marathoner, a 5K might seem a lot more manageable. Although for me, I prefer the marathon distance because you are hurting for a longer period of time, but the hurt is not as intense.
So
For
there's
a
some
half
masochism
marathon,
here.
I'm hurting more, but
Yeah.
it's a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, running is super, super relative. Every time that I am doing a recovery week, it's funny seeing the miles drop down a little bit.
Hmm.
The previous week I've gone out for an 18-mile long run, and now all of a sudden my long run is 14 miles. I'm like, 14 miles, piece of cake, short little jog. And then same thing when you're building up and you haven't done some heavy mileage in a while. You see a 16-mile run, you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's so long.
Hmm.
So it's really funny how your mentality is super fluid with running, and it's all really relative.
How long did it take you to build up to something like that? Your lungs must be amazing. How did you get up to that volume? I'm trying to like think about
Yeah,
myself right now in my position thinking about that. It sounds insane. Or maybe anyone else listening who might be like, well, maybe I should get into running because there's so many benefits to running for health reasons, cardiovascular, all these things. Did it take a while to get used to that volume?
yeah. So with running, and I was actually going to ask you this because
Yeah.
you've gone from what it sounds like almost 0K a week to 35K a week, which is 21 miles, 22
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, it is risky health wise to increase mileage too soon or too quickly.
Hmm.
You're not going to die or anything like that, but you are at risk for like a stress fracture
Right. Yeah.
or shin splints
Yeah.
or just overuse injuries. When I signed up for the marathon, I think I was running maybe 3 times a week for like 45 minutes or so. Not
Hmm.
really distance, but just either going out for a 45-minute run or doing 45 minutes on the treadmill. Um, and then when I started training for my first marathon, I started running a little bit more often. And I wish I had kept track of kind of what my mileage was at that point.
Hmm.
I think after my first marathon, I got to a point where I was running 5 or 6 days a week, 5 or 6 miles every day.
Wow.
So about
Wow.
25 or 30 miles a week. Nothing crazy though. That's a pretty modest
Okay.
amount.
It sounds crazy to me, but that's okay. So yeah,
But I mean, again,
you
I think
built up to
sports
it
are really
slowly.
relative.
Yeah.
And to some people, the idea of going and lifting weights 5 days a week is ridiculous. Or to some
Hmm.
people, the idea of going to the climbing gym
Yeah. 4 or 5 days a
an
week.
hour every day. I mean, I haven't climbed now in several years. And if I went to the climbing gym 5 days in a row,
Yeah.
my hands would be shredded.
Yeah.
My
Exactly.
forearms, I would be wrecked. Probably my shoulders, back, and chest would be incredibly tight.
Hmm.
Um, so again, it's all kind of relative. You build up that endurance gradually, and you almost don't notice when you get to that point. So I was regularly running for the past, I ran my first marathon at 21. I'm 28 now. So for the past 7 years, I ran more or less 6 days a week, usually averaging 6 or 7 miles a day.
That's awesome. That's crazy. Yeah. How many pairs of shoes do you go through?
I could show you. I've got like a bazillion pairs of shoes. I rotate them. Because there are certain shoes I like for my long runs. There's certain shoes I like for speed work. There's certain shoes that I like for like a tempo run. It all kind of depends. But usually a pair of shoes will last me about 350 miles-ish.
Okay. So like a month?
And sometimes it'll last me about 5 or 6 weeks. Sometimes it'll last me more. But usually I'm using multiple pairs of shoes in a given week. So if I have 3 or 4 pairs of shoes, those 3 or 4 pairs of shoes can last me 6 or 7 months, sometimes more.
You've got those Nike Next Percents that everybody wears?
I do have the Vaporflies.
Vaporflies?
Yes. I use them sparingly. My coach is a little bit, I don't know if he's distrustful, but he thinks that they can help your foot strike because they promote a forefoot strike. But also they're doing a lot of the work for your foot. So yeah, they can make you faster. They might improve your foot strike, but there's also some evidence that they can promote ankle instability or cause injuries.
So you need perfect form. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you rely on something 100% of the time that's doing the work for you?
Yeah.
What if I get as fast as I can run in training and then I just put them on for race day?
Yeah.
Isn't that better than using them to try and pull off workouts that are beyond my...
That sounds like the smart move, because then it makes your race day seem even easier.
Yeah. And perception of effort is everything in distance running. It's all about trying to make your current level of effort feel a little bit easier, even the smallest amount.
Something I've been learning since like my tendon's been hurting in my foot and getting back into running is one, that I've got terrible form. And the nice thing about doing this challenge right now has been like picking up some shots of me running. And
that's a real shot to the heart when you see a picture of yourself running.
Well, I feel like I'm
the biggest blow to your ego,
right?
At least for me.
It is. Yeah. I was like, oh, I think I can run at a pretty good speed. But I was trying to get to the bottom of like, why am I like hurting so much? And like, what's the actual proper way to run? So if anybody else is like looking to get into running, just like, I think like lifting weights or like anything else, thinking about your form and how to properly do it will save you a lot of headaches. I knew things like people get stress fractures and I got to be careful about that. And when it started happening to me, or at least my tendon, I don't have a fracture or anything like that. It's not as serious as that. I would be striking with my heel and my foot was hitting the ground in front of my body. So it's not over my center of gravity. So if anybody's getting into running, I've learned that it's actually...
So it sounds like you were overstriding.
Overstriding, exactly. I want to, I don't know if I want to go faster, or I'm not lifting my knees enough or whatever it is. I'll go for a 5K run and I've spent the entire time hyper-focused on where do I put my foot? Like the whole time. And it consumes my entire run just thinking about my form so specifically. But I've noticed difference in that my ankle doesn't hurt as much when I strike properly, and you can actually go faster when you have proper form. And I think a lot of people might start running and they might have form like I do. And what I learned was when you're hitting with your heel first, you're actually like putting the brakes on your stride, and it's like causing, I don't know.
There's
more
a
energy,
higher amount of impact on your body when you strike with your heel. So the impact on like your ankle, your knee, and your hip joint is a lot more than if you were to strike with your forefoot. And it's also easier to run faster if you have more of a forefoot strike, There are some runners who are natural forefoot strikers and some people who are natural heel strikers. And I don't think you're never going to change that completely, but you can improve it as much as you can. So you're now a forefoot striker is what you're telling me, though.
I'm trying to.
You're trying to be.
I'm trying to. It's a lot of mental energy. And now I feel my Achilles more because I think you hit that spot now because that's the like bouncy reaction part.
It's, I know what you're saying about going out for a run and just spending the whole time thinking. I do the same thing where I'm like, all right, lean forward. And I'm like, no, don't look down, look out. And then I'm like, all right, keep your chest open, relax your shoulders, and like, stop clenching your jaw. I'm like, oh, okay, remember to breathe. And you're like, all right, pick up your knees. And you're like, fast heel recovery.
Yeah.
And you're like, land under your center of mass.
Yeah.
It's constant. You're like, oh, gotta engage the core.
It seems so easy in theory, but then when you put it into practice, it's a lot. And then doing that for 3 hours is a lot. And I relate it again to climbing because I think about proper climbing form. And I've talked to other trainers about muscle activation and essentially being relaxed in the places that you should be relaxed and engaged in the places that you need to be engaged. And that will give the optimum performance. So in climbing, it's so key to have that because when you take someone climbing for the first time, they get really tense and maybe scared and they overgrip and they're using so much energy. And then next thing you know, they can't get up something they can obviously get up because it's just all this wasted energy. And then running, I see the commonalities throughout. I do the same thing. I'll be like, relax the breath, relax the jaw. Okay, but now my shoulders are here. And now I'm not breathing properly in. And then, my legs are not striking or my feet's not striking the right place. And move the arms, not across the body, it's just like one thing after another. Are you at a place now where you can just run? Or are you still, even at your level, are you still honing in on these little things?
So I think the more I get into running, the more complicated it gets.
Wow.
It was something that I didn't really think about as much when I was first starting to run. I didn't really think about form that much or breathing. I'm a yoga teacher, so breathing for running is something that the breath translates really, really well.
Okay.
So I've always had a really strong ability to keep my breath under control and therefore my heart rate under control with faster paces. But when I first started running, I wasn't thinking so much about form or relaxing things or whatever. It was just getting the miles down. And now when I go out, I think especially so having worked with a coach now and trying to pull off faster paces and doing all sorts of different training runs, it's a constant sort of like trying to check in and then trying to check out and trying to check in and trying to check out.
Yeah.
And even I think as much as I'm doing it physically with my body of checking to see like where I'm at, I do it even more so mentally. Because I mean, people will say all the time that, your brain will quit before your body does. And it actually is true. There's a lot of safeguards that your body has in place to prevent you from expending all your energy. Other than, I think it was Philippides who ran from Athens to Marathon and then, died.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have exercised themselves to death. It's just not something you hear about, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something I have to like mentally check in with myself and tell myself all the time when I'm running faster paces or really difficult workouts, being like, hey, you're fine. You're not going to die. You're in pain. You're uncomfortable, but you're not in danger. And just trying to mentally check in with yourself, because it's really easy to go to that space in your head of like, this is bad. I'm in trouble. I can't do this. And just sort of checking in with yourself and being like, you're fine. You're cool. Just chill out a little bit. Hang on a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So it's constantly, I'm checking with my brain, I'm checking in with my body, talking to myself, trying to get through it. So I don't think it gets easier necessarily. There are aspects about it that you don't have to think about so much anymore. Like for me, I don't know. Do you keep track of your cadence at all?
I don't.
Like your
I know
steps per minute?
I know that's a thing. I know like 180 is
Yeah.
like that magic number because I've been doing all this research now as I do.
Yeah, a
Once I
little
start
over 180.
getting into something, but I haven't measured that, nor do I really know how to measure that. Uh,
Yeah. So you can measure it with a
yeah.
watch.
Is this the
I
Garmin
was
watch I've been hearing so much about?
So I have a Garmin. You can also measure it on the Apple Watch.
Okay.
You can also do it by simply counting the number of times that your right foot strikes in a given minute and then multiply that by 2, and that'll give you your steps per minute.
Okay. Okay.
You're right about the 180 and above being what's seen as like efficient or good running economy. And I no longer have to think about cadence, for example. Sometimes I'll think about it a little bit if I'm trying to pull off a faster pace because I know that having a higher cadence will help me with that. But if I go out for an easy run, don't think about it. My cadence is naturally about 185.
Awesome.
So there are things that do get easier and you don't have to think about. And then there are things that I think will forever you'll have to think about.
Do you ever get into a flow state when you're running where you kind of, all these other things can disappear, maybe in a race at some moments when it's not too hard yet?
Yeah, there's definitely moments where I think you find that effort completely matches what you're putting out. Like everything's perfectly aligned. You feel good. You feel capable, and you're just sort of cruising. Yeah, I definitely get those moments. They don't happen very often when I'm doing a mile repeat workout or something like that. That requires a lot of focus. But definitely during some of my longer runs, when you get into the groove of things, kind of just zone out and the miles seem to clip away.
Yeah. So you're a yoga instructor.
Mm-hmm.
I hear time and time again, almost regardless of the sport, yoga seems to be something that everyone recommends. And I've done it a few times. And I always think, God, this would be really great for rock climbers. Obviously, you would be an advocate for yoga, but have you been able to use yoga in many aspects of athleticism? Have you noticed it being a big difference in your success?
Yeah. So I think as athletes, anytime that we incorporate cross training, it can be really beneficial. And with running, especially because you're prone to overuse injuries, it's important to incorporate cross training. So physically, I think it has huge benefits. It can help you open up your stride and help you combat injuries. But I think the mental aspect of yoga is also really a powerful tool for runners or rock climbers or any sort of athlete. Learning to slow down your breath, learning to control the mind by controlling your body, learning to find that meditative state when things are challenging. I think there's a lot of great tools from yoga that you can incorporate into other athletic endeavors.
Do you have any mental tricks when you go into a race? Do you have anything that you've practiced to get yourself ready to go?
So many tricks.
So many tricks?
I mean, and they're not all mental tricks. A lot of them, so I was talking about perception of effort, and there's a lot of things that you can do to decrease your perception of effort, or basically how hard a given pace feels. A lot of runners use caffeine. Caffeine
I'm a
helps.
big fan of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Caffeine, basically, your body is not as responsive to pain. Same thing. A lot of athletes will use the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because those can help with perception of effort. Carbs like the
Carbs,
goos and stuff like that. Those
yeah.
can help. Having something cold in your hand can help. And then there's some mental tools that you can use. And one of my favorite ones is what I mentioned of checking in with yourself and seeing, sort of asking the question, am I uncomfortable or am I in pain?
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you can keep those two separate in your head, it's going to allow you to keep pushing. Because if you're like, I'm in pain, I cannot go any further. But most of the time as runners, we're not physically in pain unless you have an injury. We're just really, really, really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, breathing, it sounds
It's a pretty key one.
kind of silly, but
yeah.
keeping your breath under control. There's lots of little tricks and stuff that you can use.
What's a diet like for a runner on the daily? I've been trying to figure it out. I've been so
What's the
accustomed.
diet like for the runner, for like an elite runner? What's my diet like? Because
is yours very different than? Let's do both. What are you doing, and what's the goal that people would? What's the general advice for someone? I imagine you're running so much. I mean, you're going to be burning tons of calories a day. And I know there's the carb loading thing before a race. Is this a daily regimen for you there?
There are a lot of higher level athletes who work with nutritionists or dietitians, and I think it's really, really smart. Nutrition and sleep are two of the biggest elements to success in running outside of your training. I would love to start working with a professional. It would probably be beneficial, but as of right now, I don't follow any sort of nutrition plan. I really try to eat relatively healthy, and by healthy, I mean having balanced meals, making sure I have some lean protein, making sure I have a side of vegetables or a side of fruit. And I think carbs are super important. Yes, I eat pasta, but I also try to have some carbs that are a little bit better for you, some quinoa or sweet potatoes or stuff that is going to help fuel me for my workouts. But again, like you mentioned, sometimes if I go out for an 18 or 22 mile run, you get back and it's kind of whatever you can do to get the calories back in your body.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's pizza.
My favorite.
Sometimes it's salmon and roasted veg. But I think running more than any other sport, there's an opportunity to have a little bit of flexibility with your diet because you can consume a lot.
Yeah. It's going to go away.
How are you eating during your 5K a day? I
know the diet I've had. I did consult a nutritionist last year when I was doing some of the climbing training. So I haven't shifted too far away from that because I'm not really climbing so much right now. I was taking creatine for bouldering, which is pretty useful. It's just like not really important for endurance from my understanding. But I make sure I get my protein in daily. I have like 2 bananas a day. Make sure I'm just getting enough like using more carbs than I would typically need before for climbing because it's a different type of workout, mostly rice. But yeah, I haven't been too concerned. Maybe some pizza here and there, but I haven't been pretty similar to what I was doing for climbing. Just a couple tweaks and taking more carbs in.
Yeah, and it's interesting because for you with running 5K, you don't really need to supplement during your runs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which it is interesting when you get into those runs that are lasting, 90 or more minutes and you have to start supplementing with goos and you have electrolytes and that's a whole nother game.
What's the best mix for a super long, or at what pace or what distance would you think, or time would you think, I got to bring something with me because at this point I'm going to hit that wall if I don't replenish those electrolytes?
It depends.
Okay.
Person to person, you're going to be totally different. For me, anytime I go over like 90 minutes, usually I I know that I will have to have a supplement. And that doesn't mean that at 90 minutes I'm taking something. For me, that usually means about 45 to 50 minutes into that run, I'm taking something to hold me over for the next little bit of it. If you look at the back of a lot of goos, it will say, or shoes or whatever energy supplement you're using, they'll say every 45 minutes or so. And I think that's a really good rule of thumb, but there's some wiggle room, obviously, because if you're running at a faster pace, you're expending a lot more energy than someone who's running at a little bit of a slower pace. I think you start to learn your body the longer that you've been running, and you figure out kind of what supplement plan works for you. For me, I like to carry water with me on a lot of runs. Part of that is training in Hawaii and South Carolina. They're both really hot, humid places. And I got really used to just having a little squirt bottle on me where I can take a sip. Helps keep you cool. Again, it's one of those things that reduces perception of effort.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it depends person to person. 45 minutes, though, anything longer than 90, you definitely need to have some fuel on. And definitely, you don't need to carry water with you, but you should be planning your runs around fountains or having a family member meet you to hand you some water.
That's good to know, because I know I can be quite stubborn if I started doing something like that. I remember training for the half marathon thinking, I don't need, I could do this whole race and not have anything. They had water. It was in Toronto, so they had water stations and Gatorade and things like that. But you start to feel your legs kind of like lock up, and I think you can get into a bad place if you don't properly hydrate and get those nutrients in there.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast recently, a guy who did a 100-mile race with no calories. He took in water. Yeah. And he took like salt caps and magnesium. Yeah. But he even like emptied out the capsules, so there weren't any calories in the capsules themselves.
Oh, wow.
So you can do it. And he was talking about, your body's ability to burn fat for energy versus carbs for energy. And theoretically, our bodies do have enough fat stores to get us through quite a long time. But when you're running at a higher pace, a lot of our bodies are going to be using carbs, and it's helpful to supplement with carbs so that your body can continue to work at that pace. Because as you mentioned, otherwise your legs might
stop working.
Start feeling like jello.
Are you interested in ultra marathons at all? I know before you were talking about all the marathons you were planned. I plan my travel nowadays around climbing trips. And it seems like you plan your travel around marathon runs. And there's a ton of people in the UK and the US who are really into hill walking and running and trail running, and get really big into these ultra marathon things out in these like gorgeous landscapes. Does that intrigue you at all? Would you ever get into something like that after your goals are set right now?
I think the funny thing about marathon running, and again, drawing parallels to rock climbing or bouldering, is I don't think you ever reach a point where you're like, okay, I'm done. You meet a goal and then another one sort of appears.
Almost instantly.
There's always something next on your list.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think that trail running is really awesome. Ultra marathons, I don't know if I would get into them, mainly because with the marathon distance, I like knowing when it's going to be over. And with an ultra marathon, sometimes you don't know. If it's a 50K or 100K, you're like, all right, how many hours is this going to take me? With a marathon, more or less, I know it's going to be over within 4 hours. And it's easier for me to wrap my head around hurting for 4 hours versus sort of the open-ended of how long am I going to have to hurt for. I have done I did a trail run half marathon a couple years ago, and then when I was in Hawaii, there's a really popular trail on the island of Kauai. It's the Nepali Coast Trail. It's 11 miles in, 11 miles out, A lot of people will backpack it over the course of 2 or 3 days. And I trail ran it. I've trail ran it twice, in and out. So 22 miles round trip.
Nice.
It's beautiful. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I don't enjoy trail running quite as much as I enjoy road running, for whatever reason that is.
Trail running, I think there's more risk of injury, and you can't go as fast too if you're thinking about time.
It's funny because it's the same action, it's running, but it's a completely different sport, and it attracts completely different people.
Yeah.
There is some crossover between people who are interested in, marathoning on the roads and trail running. And I think trail running can be a really good complement to road running. But yeah, they are completely different groups of people. It is really interesting. Amazing.
Any other advice for me? I mean, I'm going to finish my 30 days, and I know I'm going to need a rest. Should I? So what are you trying to get out of your 5K day for 30 days? You just want to complete the challenge? You want to feel fulfilled, or? Exactly. Yeah, those things. Well, I used to really enjoy running, and I've gotten back to it now. I like a 30-day challenge because I know a lot of people, you build habits over consistency. Mm-hmm. And I think 30 days is a really nice time frame for a lot of people because it's attainable. It's like, it seems short term enough that you can grasp it and you should be able to do something within that time. But it also is long enough that you can instill a habit that I think someone could carry forward. And I used to have good lungs and thought I was pretty good at running. I'm not that good, but getting back into it now, it was a way of getting exercise in during the lockdown, and it's something I want to mix in with my climbing. And I'm looking at the marathon race, and I forgot how hard the half marathon was. I feel like maybe I should do a marathon. Maybe I should try that and try and do a 5-minute pace for the whole thing, and I think that would be a pretty good goal. 5-minute kilometer, not mile. Yeah. Definitely not mile. 5-minute kilometer. So that would be like.
I was gonna say I was about to be super impressed. I was like, wow, I didn't know I was talking to a.
No, definitely not that. So like 5 minutes. I did a half K at a 5-minute pace. So that's an hour 45. So if I did at a full marathon at that, it's
a good rule of thumb for converting your half marathon time to your marathon time is to double your half marathon time and then add 10 minutes. But it sounds like you could easily finish sub 4 hours and maybe even better than that.
That would be a good goal. Sub 4 hours would be a good one.
I think you can do it. But again, I'm that crazy person who's just like, let's make it happen. Let's do it.
Oh, I think you are.
What about
you're the just first race, do a marathon type person.
So your half marathon PR is about an hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Would you consider after your 5K day is up trying to, take a week or whatever to rest? Would you consider trying to go out and run 13.1 miles on your own and see if you can beat your own PR? See if this 30 days of fitness has helped you improve?
Yeah, I would be up to try that. Yeah. Should I try that? Should I do that? Why not?
Why not? What else? You have a really busy quarantine schedule. Can't fit it in.
Yeah, it's slammed wall to wall, but I got an hour and a half that I can squeeze in a half marathon. So I'll do that. So give myself a week. Just make sure my ankle isn't like completely toast by that point.
Yeah.
And then try for another. I know that like preparing for the half marathon, I was doing 3 runs a week. I did like my fast run at the first, like a medium run, and then my long run on the Sunday. For people trying to get better at running, is that a type of schedule you think that's pretty easy for people to follow if they wanted to start? I mean, easing into it, you just want to get out and get your time in. But for bigger things?
It really is going to depend person to person. And if you have an aerobic base already from, for instance, playing sports, or if you're not really doing that much cardiovascular activity, and how much time you spend on your feet in a given week. So there are some people that I think you can definitely run a half marathon on 3 training days a week. Absolutely.
Hmm.
If you are a more experienced runner or you've been running for longer, 4 or 5 days a week is great. And then there's people who sometimes train every single day. It's really just going to depend person to person. That's why I really like having a coach who can sort of look at my data and say, hey, you're doing too much. We need to pull it back, or we're not doing enough. You need to do more.
Yeah.
It kind of takes the guesswork out of, am I doing enough to get this time? And is this a realistic goal? Cool. But 3 days a week is great. But I would ask you, so you're running now 7 days a week, or at least maybe walking one of those days if your ankle's bothering you.
Yeah.
Are you doing more mileage per week now than you were when you were training 3 days a week?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So it may be interesting to
just see what happens.
See what happens and see if your body responds well to sort of higher volume but spread out over more days.
Cool. I'm going to do that. Why not? I'll run a half marathon.
I'm excited. To see what happens.
So what's your next race? Do you have any idea what your next race might be then?
So London was postponed to, I think, the beginning of October. So if all goes well, that'll be my next race. Depending on how long quarantine lasts, maybe I'll do another quarantine marathon.
Nice. Yeah.
I know I am kind of interested in racing some shorter distances. It's been a couple years since I ran a half. And like raced it. I've run over 13 miles many times in my training, but doing a training run of 13 miles is a lot different than doing a half marathon and racing it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've got some real races that are upcoming, and then some races that I have in my head of paces that I'd like to hit on my own. But yeah, London Marathon should be coming up next if all goes according to plan. So I'm pretty excited about that.
In the fall. Well, I can't wait to see how you do with that.
Thanks. I'm pressure's on. I've had now like a whole year of training under my belt by the time quarantine's over.
Well, hopefully I can get out for one of your slow day runs.
Who knows? Maybe I'll come out to London and I'll pace you for your half.
That'd be good.
I'll just be harassing you the entire time. Come on, Andrew.
That'd be so stressful. Oh my God. I'll have to pick a good route.
Pressure you into a PR.
Oh, if I could get under 145, I would be astounded. That would be insane. Okay, I'm committed. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the half marathon. Thanks for the call. Callie, I'll link people towards your Instagram. Is that a good place to send people?
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Okay.
You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Hey Callie Girl or Callie Girl Runs.
Sweet. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to me about running and everything.
Yeah. Good luck with the half. Let me know if you need some peer pressure.
Okay, I will.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.